Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Goaltending, where your why is bigger than your excuses. I'm your host, Will Bland, and today we have a certified life coach and sales specialist joining us to talk about some of the processes she uses and advice she gives to really help her clients with processes and to help them reach their full potential. Before I introduce our guests, I just want to say, as always, thank you for tuning in and thank you for allowing us to be a part of your journey. Don't forget why we're here. It's all about helping you reach your goals, build self-awareness, and ultimately live the most fulfilled life possible. And our goal is to grow, so please like and subscribe, share it with your friends, comment and ask questions to join the conversation. And if you enjoy the content, please leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way. Now let's dive right into introducing our guest. Like I said, she's a certified life coach and sales specialist with a focus on inspiring people to action. She founded her business, Blackburn Boutique, in 2020. And to that business, she brings over 15 years of audio and visual sales management experience to the conversation. The reason I wanted to bring her on is because I saw immediately that she is just so generous with the valuable information she consistently shares with people to help them with mindset and action toward their goals. And on top of all that, she's a proud military spouse, a mother, daughter, sister, aunt, and friend. Amy Blackburn, thanks for joining the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. I'm so excited for the conversation we're going to get into today. And I'll jump right into can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure, absolutely. I love when people ask me kind of like who you are, because so many people go directly to their business. But I tell people that I am, an outdoors enthusiast, a scuba diver, a lover of nature minus the bugs, a dog lover, married to my best friend, and live on a farm. I mean, those are all the components who make up who I am. I have family in Florida. I live in Kentucky. We're RV people. We love to travel. I love to explore. I love to hit places that I've never been to see what we can learn and see who we can meet and just go about. As far as the business, as you shared, it's Blackburn Boutique Coaching. I'm a certified life coach, but also a sales specialist. And I really like to tune into people because what I look back on is all the people that helped me get to where I am today. If it weren't for them, I really would not have gotten to this point, and I couldn't have done it alone. So I look to give back to anybody that I can because so many, just unsolicited, timing, they gave back to me when I didn't even know that I needed it. I didn't ask for it. Sometimes I don't think I wanted it, but they just poured into me to make sure that I could see what they saw in me. And so that's what I look to do in my business. And I describe what I do because some people say, oh, I'm a life coach or I'm a sales coach, but I really like to say I'm a mental GPS. And people look at me like, what in the world? And I'm like, I really believe that the people that come to me, they know where they want to go. They have all the answers
Mhm.
in them, but so much stuff that they've heard, that they've experienced, all these thoughts going through their head, they just cannot get to where they want to go. Some people would say, oh, they're just lazy or they're not doing, what they need to do. And there are some people that are lazy. I mean, heck, we've all been lazy, but there are a lot of people that struggle with peeling away those layers of negative comments, negative thoughts, just stuff that they can't get out of. I describe it kind of like being stuck in quicksand. And sometimes you just need a hand in there to yank you out. But you
Mhm.
know where you want to go. Oftentimes you just can't take that first step. You can't put a game plan together. But it's not that you're not smart. It's not that you don't have what you need to do it. You just need somebody to help guide you there. And I don't do sports analogies because I don't watch sports at all, but I often say it's kind of like I help people get their car to where they want it to go. Rip out the rearview mirror, stay out of the ditch. If you go in the ditch, I help bring them back on. But my thing is I want them in control of what they want to do. Because some people assume that a coach tells you what to do. I don't. I come in as an unbiased partner. I don't have an agenda other than to listen to you and figure out and know and understand where you are right now and where you want to be, who you want to be, what you know you can do, but you struggle to get there or do that. And I will build a path to get you there. So that's why I'm kind of a mental GPS, because even the GPS will tell you, oh, you have veered off the path, buddy. You need to turn around and then move forward. And it's okay to do that. It's okay to take steps back, because
Hmm.
those steps back are going to be able to get you moving forward again. So that's kind of in a roundabout manner. That's what I get to do every day.
That's fantastic. That's such a great explanation and really gives a good introduction to a lot of the things we're going to talk about today when we get into mindset. I think that that's a big piece, but I love how you talk about it's not about giving people the answer because a lot of times they do already have it.
Mhm.
And so you're able to just be a guide, ask questions, challenge them to find it within themselves.
They do, and I think a lot of people do come to me with the expectation of, so you're going to tell me how to sell this, you're going to tell me how to accomplish this, and what I let them know is I'm going to work with you on how to think for yourself.
Hmm.
And that's, I mean, that's, I do a lot of thought work.
I love it. Thought work is really a big piece of what's needed, what people need. It's to recognize and understand their minds to build that self awareness.
Hmm.
All right, so I think that takes us to a great piece where we can jump right into a little bit more about actually helping people toward their goals. And one of the things I frequently talk about is getting clear on your why. One of the biggest parts to step one in the goaltending process. And I love the story that you shared when you talked about being stubborn growing up
Yes.
and always needing to know why was what you meant by being stubborn. And the point that you got to in that, I'll quote it, is getting the story or why wrong in your head is likely producing negative thoughts. That
Yes.
stood out to me so much, and I just wanted to bring it up and see, can you tell us a little bit about those negative thoughts, how they hold us back, and how people can get clear on their why to avoid them?
Sure, absolutely. And when you read my quote back to me, a story automatically came to my head that I'll share very quick. But the stories that we tell ourselves on the why, it's not really about why unless it's, you're saying, well, I didn't go to the gym today, and well, it's probably because I'm just lazy. Yeah, sometimes people are lazy, but other times if we actually take the time to think about why we didn't go, there might be underlying reasons of why we didn't go. Or, I didn't get the promotion at work because they don't like me.
Hmm.
I didn't get that raise that I wanted because they don't think my work deserves it. So oftentimes we answer our whys for everybody else. We don't take the time to think, what other story could it be? And you know what? If we didn't get the promotion because they truly did not like us, it's none of our business, right?
Hmm.
So if I hold that story with me that, oh my gosh, I'm here and they don't like me and they didn't promote me because of that, I'm going to have negative feelings when I go to work every day. However, if I say, you know what, what's another story that I can tell myself? I didn't get the promotion because I looked at the person that did, and you know what? They were a little bit more qualified. Maybe they gelled better with the culture on that team.
Hmm.
Okay, great. If that's the case, great. I'm glad that person was a better fit. Now I'm going to go back and do my job to the best of my ability. That story feels better to me. When I feel better, I take different actions. When I take different actions, then I control and I get different results. So, one of the stories that came to mind when you read that back to me was I had a person that I had coached in the past who came to me because they wanted to ask for a raise at work. Something very common that people want to do. But before we even talked about the raise, we talked about how this person felt sitting at the executive table. And she reported to the CEO she didn't feel fantastic sitting at the table because sometimes when she would share things, she would get feedback.
Hmm.
Now, that feedback, whether it was right or wrong on how it was delivered, it wasn't received very well. It didn't feel good, right? So the initial thought was, oh, they're giving me that feedback because they don't think I'm that smart. So we talked about, what's another way that you can look at that? What's another story that you can tell yourself that's going to allow you to move forward? Whatever the reasoning was, obviously you have choices. You can go have a direct conversation with the person that shared that feedback and let them know, and again, that has different ways also. You can say, that made me mad or that upset me. Or you could say, you know what, I'm trying to grow in this organization. I heard your feedback. Could you provide a little bit more explanation for me so I can understand it better? Or, once you figure that out, you can tell yourself, another story is if you can't have the conversation, you can tell yourself, you know what, they're likely just telling me that to help me grow, but maybe they didn't word it that well. Maybe they're not great at sharing feedback, but the higher level meaning of that was really good at heart. It was to help me grow in the organization.
Hmm.
So again, we all have a choice on how we perceive things, on the stories that we tell ourselves. And we can either choose stories and reasons that serve us, or we could sit there and be upset every day, all day, and choose to dwell on stories that don't serve us at all. It's our choice.
That's fantastic. And just 100%, it's all about mindset and focusing on what you do have control over. Because we tell ourselves those stories in our heads, we make things up to fill in gaps. It's like when there's a
Mhm.
lack of information, we tell ourselves stories to fill in the gaps of information and make stuff up. And a lot of times it's detrimental or negative. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you shared that story. I think it's an excellent learning point for people
Yeah.
because your client dealt with it, and I know that I've dealt with it in the past, and I know that there are so many other people out there who experience that battle in their minds.
Yeah. What they don't think about is all that time, the energy, the motivation, the momentum that they're losing that time during that time while they're dwelling on the story that doesn't serve them. Now, granted, you just can't say, oh, okay, great, I'm just going to switch it off. Sometimes you can, depending on what it is. But, give yourself 30 minutes. 30 minutes, you're going to take the time, you're going to dwell on it, you're going to think about it and say, bam, I'm done, I'm over it. Now I'm going to replace it with this thought so I can move on. Again, my choice.
Hmm. And when you talk about that, a piece of that, you talked about time. And
Hmm.
a big piece to reaching our goals is finding places where we're spending energy and time on things that don't suit us. And one thing that I've seen you talk about is Indecision Land. And so I wanted to see if you talk a little bit about what Indecision Land is, because I know that that's something that a lot of people experience.
Oh my gosh, that comes up in 90% of the conversations I have, whether I'm at a networking event, I'm in a social situation, I'm coaching a client, I'm doing a consultation, whether it's, sometimes at home deciding what to have for dinner. I'm sure everybody loves that question of what are we doing for dinner tonight? Indecision land is a daily part, I think, of everybody's experience. And, sometimes, yeah, you're going to be stuck in indecision land for a short time, but indecision land, I think, really developed in my head when I was dealing with somebody in the past, in a work situation that, and this is how I always said it. So forgive the grammatical errors in this sentence, but this person planned to plan to plan to plan to plan, researched, and then they planned some more. It was all about the planning because the planning was so comfortable. It felt good. It was active. It was work. There was just, it felt busy, right? So it was doing something, but what it was avoiding was making decisions. It was avoiding having the conversation. It was avoiding deciding. And that, I think, from there, that's kind of where indecision land spirals, because where I saw so many people waste so much time, and I come from the sales environment. So it was always about, activity and time, right? Time management. It's like, what are you spending your time on? What sales related activity are you spending your time on? Are you doing something that is leading you to your next sale? If not, stop. And that was a really hard, well, I'm making a list of 100 people that I need to call. Great. Have they decided to speak with you? Well, I don't know. I'm making the list right now, and I'm putting it in an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm putting all the data into it. I'm like, so you're spending like 6 hours putting info together that you don't know if it's going to serve you or not. So that's really where it came down to. Then the fine tuning of it is sometimes when people are in indecision land, they have a hard time because they research and they plan from, and this is going to sound kind of backwards, but they come from a mindset of abundance, which is great. However, when you're having to make a decision, you cannot research 100 books for information. You cannot listen to 100 podcasts, or I guess you can. But that is really going to extend the time that you get to where you want to go, that you're going to reach your, step 5 and you're only on step 1. And so you really need to fine tune or limit the amount of research that you're going to do, the amount of resources that you're going to dive into or use to get to where you want to go. And I had somebody ask me one time, they're like, you're a coach, and there's so much coaching information, Amy. Do you listen to this, and do you read this, and have you read this, and there's a seminar, and, how do you stay up to date? And I let them know that I have basically 3 things, and that's what I limit it to. I get solicited all the time on LinkedIn, and I'll get tapi emails, and I shut them down automatically. I used to try to reply, and then often I would offer sales advice on how to get to people like me more. But then I quit doing that because you have to limit your resources if you want to make decisions. And it doesn't mean that these 10 other resources over here aren't great, because they probably are. And you could probably get a nugget from each of them, because my saying is, you get what you came for. It's up to you. It's your responsibility, right? It's not the speaker. It's not anything else. It's you. So you pick the 3 to 5 or whatever your number is that you want to work with. You work it. You get what you came for. And then if you're done with those, then you replace them. But that's part of, every week I have conversations on people doing, reading, listening to 100 different things, but they never act on anything. And so that's why everybody who has ever talked to me about sales, here's the plan to plan to plan to plan, research a little bit more, and then I'm going to plan about 20 times more, because it feels good. I'm doing something and I'm active, but I'm not really acting on any of it. So that's kind of the backstory from Indecision Land. Humorous, yes, but important, because unless people limit themselves and kind of not use the place of abundance with their resources, it's going to really detract them from moving forward, stop them from moving forward, and they're not going to reach their destination. And part of that is, from having too many resources, but there could be other underlying reasons. A lot of people stay in a decision land of fear. They have this fear that, oh my gosh, if I make a decision, it's not going to be the right one. Yeah. And my thing is, I'm going to make a decision, might not be the right one, and I might fail, and then I'm going to learn from that, then I'm going to move on, right? Fail quickly and move forward. Fail quickly and move forward. My thing is if you are not failing, you're not taking enough action. But a lot of people don't want to fail. They're afraid to fail. Well, first of all, who wants to fail? I get it. Failing doesn't feel good, right? And you think that, oh, I failed, that's going to keep me from moving forward, or that's going to slow me down. But the less you're failing, the slower you're going.
That's fantastic. The less you're failing, the slower you're going. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
And I've talked about in the past having a win or learn mentality, because those failures are not necessarily failures. As long as you learn something from them, they give you something that you're able to use moving forward. You now have a new piece of knowledge, a new piece of information you can use in your journey.
Mhm.
So I love that takeaway.
Thank you.
And another thing is, people get caught up in the planning, and yes, it's very important to plan, but the most important teacher is experience. Sometimes, like, there's not a book for everything that you need to learn when it comes to starting a business or towards specific goals. You just have to go for it and learn as you go. Some It
Mhm.
doesn't mean go in with no plan, but I get 100% what you're saying and love it because you have to take action. So when you talk about, or when people talk about struggles toward their goals or anything that they want to do, it's important to know what you think's been holding you back from getting what you want. And you talked about people already know what that is. You help to bring that out of them. So what are some
Mhm.
of the responses you've had to that? And how can people overcome those things that are holding them back? How do they overcome them?
Sure. And that's thank you very much for asking. That's a great question because that's something obviously that I talk about, 99.9% of the time. Because anytime I talk to somebody, it's always about struggling to get to where they want to go. And a lot of times they say, well, I just don't know, or time management comes up all the time. I mean, like every single call we talk about time management, and it really comes down to prioritizing. I mean, that's kind of simple prioritizing, but often in their brain, the way that they're thinking, well, I have to do A, Z, B, C, D, E. I mean, they've got things all over the place. It's very scattered and messy. And a lot of times, again, I don't dictate what they do. I don't answer. And it's interesting to have those conversations. Okay, well, lead me through the things that you feel are taking your time. And as they're calling it out, they might say, well, and I quote, well, I spent some time with operations on calls and other things, but I really shouldn't have been doing that. That really isn't in my lane. So I should probably not do that. So it's interesting to have these conversations because again, as they're saying things out loud, and that's another good tip to talk about things out loud to yourself, because it's one thing to say think about them, it's one thing to see them, but it's another thing when you're saying them out loud because often when we do, we're like, you know what? I am doing that, but I probably shouldn't. Or if I'm doing that, I probably need to cut down the time that I'm doing that. Um,
Hmm.
in sales, a lot of times we will answer the phone of a prospect or an existing client. We'll drop everything and we'll go do it. So a lot of times it's not that you shouldn't be doing something, but maybe you shouldn't be doing it when you're doing it because it's distracting. Like trying to work on a project where you're still looking at your emails and you're seeing all the beeps and everything go off on your phone. So again, going back to time management, it's how can we limit the distractions to give you 45 solid minutes of working on something? Just as an example. But a lot of times it's just a different way of thinking. A lot of people think that, oh my gosh, this is going to be so huge. I don't know if you can help me, Amy. And it's usually pretty simple because I stick to the basics and listening to them, having them say it out loud, and looking at how they're arranging things. But yeah, I mean, time management is a huge one. The other one that is huge, and it's as big as time management, is confidence. They
Yes.
just they fear so many different things for so many different reasons. I think you could have a call on each one of the reasons of why they fear things, but confidence is huge in that as well. That holds them back a lot. A lot of times people have a fear of not being successful, but then just as much people have a fear of being successful. I think my husband shared it's kind of like the dog that caught the car. What? It happened. Now what do I do? Oh my gosh. So it's like people that talk about, well, if I were in that position, I would do A, B, and C. Or I really want that position. They get the position and they're like, oh my gosh, I have no clue what I'm doing. I mean, and that has happened to me before. I've talked about, a person who was managing me and, what are they doing? And then I get put in a position and I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, what do I do now? So it's a lot of fear and time management is what we work with. And then the other thing is again, they know where they want to go. They know the parts and pieces that need to be put together, but the whole arrangement of things on how to do it, how to put a plan together. Because often we think that, okay, like today I just graduated from college and I want to be making $250,000 next week. Can you help me get there? Well, I mean, if you're willing to do the work, I guess we could. But often they when they put the steps together to get to the goal, they think that it's like flipping a switch, and that I should be able to. Hey, I've worked on this for a day, and why am I not seeing results yet? So that whole thing of instant gratification and not seeing results and lack of it, they might get the motor started a little bit, but then they just quit because they're not seeing the results. People have a really hard time believing that things are working when they can't see it, feel it.
That's fantastic. That's incredible. I love all of the pieces of that story because time management is key. Like prioritization is key. Confidence, and actually, I'm glad you brought up a piece of the piece that your husband shared, where I've worked with him in the past. Um, I remember him actually teaching me a lesson at one time as a mentor to me, and basically somebody I was supposed to be in charge of an area, and it was just kind of passed on to me because I was the next highest ranking. Didn't fully know what was going on, and somebody came in and asked a question, and I was like, I'm not really sure. And when he came back, he said, when in charge, be in charge.
Mhm.
It's such a great, like simple takeaway, but I think it ties in perfectly to that confidence piece. Like when you're there, own it and go for it. So what are I want to get into to this one real quick because I think it'll be great to it's great to hear the stories. I want to hear from your perspective
Mhm.
on what's one or two of the biggest obstacles you faced, and then how'd you either overcome it or learn from it?
I think one of the biggest, thinking back to one of the most pivotal moments in my before I owned my own business, when I was in the AV business and I was working for the smaller family owned company, which was great. It was when I did get into that role of, management to begin with in the first couple years. And I worked very hard. I was a very hard worker. I don't know if obviously all of what I was doing was getting me to where I wanted to go, but I was putting in the hours, I was putting in the time. I was doing a lot of hiring, like a revolving door, doing all of the things that I thought I should be doing, but I didn't feel very successful. I was extremely buttoned up, very professional. I really filled the role of being that, management professional. Then this was in between CEOs because I reported to the CEO because I had gotten up a few levels, reported to the CEO, and we were in between CEOs, and the owner of the company did a 360 review on me. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. If for those who haven't heard it, it's basically a review of your management, your peers, like on the executive team, that's where I was, and then those that report to you. And I was like, okay, I got those results back and I was baffled, sad, like, holy smokes, I'm going to get fired. And then, wow, what? Because I thought I was doing all of the things, I was so professional. The one thing that I forgot to do is be human in the business.
Yes.
If people listen to this podcast and that's the one takeaway they hear today, I promise you that's the one, especially now in today's employee market, that's going to help you, is humanize your business. If you don't know how to do that, call me later. Let's do coffee. But humanize your business, connect with the people. That was, I mean, and I thought I was to the extent that I needed to, but I was blown away. by my results on that 360, and the fact that going back to the people that really helped me, that owner, he's the one that shared the 360 results with me. So it's not, I was in between bosses, so hey, owner, and we're good friends, so it worked out great. But it was just really trying to think of the best way to describe that. It was a very eye-opening day for me. It's that you can be professional, you can be buttoned up, but you need to be human. Because when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, we're all just people. We all should be on the same page, having the same goal, working for the same things. And if you can't connect with people, I don't care how good you are, you're not going to be successful. So that is my one huge takeaway that I carry with me every single day, is to connect with people, to communicate with people. And so I'm really big on culture in organizations, whether I'm talking to somebody, from a small, business owner to somebody in a large company. I talk culture comes up all the time. And what I learned from that small family owned company, that the CEOs that I had there and then the owner were, I mean, I will take that with me for a lifetime. It's about connecting with people and culture and really caring, like, how is somebody's day going. I mean, the things that we instituted, like one example is like when I went into an office in the morning, whatever office we had, because we had, I don't know, 13 to 15 of them. I didn't come in, go to an office and sit down. I didn't go, if I was traveling, go to the conference room, sit down and boot up. I came in, I threw my stuff down, and I went to talk to each person in that office. Hi, how are you? How's your day going? How's your week going? How's your kid doing? I mean, literally, like just 2 weeks ago, I ordered Girl Scout cookies, like to have them shipped from a lady in one of the offices, because I think it's her granddaughter that's been in Girl Scouts since I was at that company years ago. And I still want to support her granddaughter because we have a
Mm-hmm.
relationship. But yeah, that's what I did, and that made a huge difference, connecting with people, especially the people that I don't connect with. Like, I didn't hone in on the salespeople. That's the team that I ran. I went to operations, I went to finance, I went to admin, the technicians who ran the trucks. How are you doing? How's your son doing? How's your daughter doing? How's your wife doing? I made it a point to connect with people all the time. So from that day forward, well, not that day, because it took me a little bit of time to do some mind work myself. Because again, it was just really like a really mind blowing experience to hear that about me, in a good way, though. I needed it. I
Mm-hmm.
really needed it, but I didn't know I needed it. And I'm so thankful that the owner took the time and invested in me and got me coaching. And just really, I mean, whatever I needed, it's like, here's an open check, get what you need to get the resources for you to get the training. Because they believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. He saw something in me that I couldn't see. And I am forever grateful for that. But humanize your business, because we're people. People need to feel like a human in their business. They need to feel like a
Mm-hmm.
person. And I'm trying to think of the book. I don't know if it's The Five Dysfunctions of a Team or another book, but
Good
there's
one.
a book that lists like 12 things, but just getting down to the five main points of what an employee needs at work. You need to nail those. Or I don't care what you do, it's going to be hard to be successful, and you're going to have a revolving door because people aren't going to want to be there. But again, especially nowadays, because it's an employee's market, not an employer's market. So there we go. Sorry for the long winded answer.
No, that's an incredible takeaway. And I love the story too because feedback is crucial to growth. But the
Mhm.
way in which you receive feedback can be such a huge factor in what you do next. You can have an open mindset or a closed mindset. And if you're unable to find a way to be open about that feedback and find the growth from it and find the opportunity, and you approach it with a closed mindset, it can really take you down a, a unsuccessful path, or one in which at least takes a longer to get to reaching your full potential and where you want to be. So I'm so glad you shared that story, and that it is a story of taking the feedback and growing from it.
It is. Do you mind if I share one other thing?
Please do.
Just because you brought up feedback, and I think that's a really important point. Some companies do reviews, other companies don't. Some do it like every 6 months, some do it every 12 months or like an annual review. And what always surprises me is that people are shocked by their reviews. Because one of the things, again, at the family-owned company, because again, I feel like that's where I learned everything that is really good, and sometimes some hard lessons. But what we did is we had one-on-one meetings weekly. Like my team, I met one-on-one with each individual every week. So their review was never a surprise. And our saying at that work that one of the CEOs taught me was always share the embers in the forest with me, not when the forest is burning down, right? And it's kind of vice versa with an employee, right? If you stay in regular communication, then you're sharing things with them and they're sharing things with you. And that's, again, humanize the business. I can't recommend that enough.
Yes, and the communication factor is so huge to that. Uh, Diving into mindset, because
Mhm.
that's where we started. I know that's what you like to focus on too. And
Yes.
one of my favorite topics to just discuss and dive into. I saw you talk about becoming the conductor of your brain's thought process.
Mhm.
I absolutely love that analogy. So, what does that mean specifically?
It's pretty simple. Being the conductor means you're leading everything. Like if you think of the conductor of a band, so many people that I have conversations with, they're like, "Oh my gosh, these thoughts are going through my head," and understandably, it's very difficult when you have thoughts going through your head. But I remind everybody, including myself, you control them. They're coming from you. Right? So, again, going back to the thoughts or the stories that you create, you can choose to keep those or you can choose to do thought work and control your thoughts. Again, it's all a choice on your sense of urgency to do something about something, right? So, if your thoughts are bothering you, of, oh my gosh, I'm just having these thoughts, again, whether it's at work, whether it's personal, it's all the same. You're controlling your thoughts. You are your brain. You have control over that. It's not your thoughts happening to you. You are controlling your thoughts. I know, Amy, but they just keep swirling around my head. Well, that's okay. Jot them all down. Get a thought journal. When you're having a feeling that you don't like, what are you thinking in that moment? You control them. And if you don't like them, the coolest thing is you have the choice to change them. Now,
Yes.
again, it's not going to happen overnight. If you work on it, it's going to happen. I mean, again, coming from sales, you will get a phone call, or I did all the time of, oh my gosh, I didn't get the sale, or oh my gosh, I've made 20 phone calls and I didn't get any appointments, or oh my gosh, it's snowing and I don't want to go out and, cold call, or well, it's cold, so it is cold, true cold calling, right? I mean, you've got to find the humor and the fun in it. It's all in the way you control your thoughts. It's all
Hmm.
a choice. But simply put, you either choose to be the conductor and show up for yourself, or you choose to remain, in the audience watching. It's all your choice, but you are the conductor if you choose to be.
Yes. And a piece of that too, where you talked about to kind of hone in on what your mind is doing, writing it down, and you might start to realize that you have some pieces in your vocabulary that need to be removed.
Yes.
Things like I know you've talked about like if I or or one day I'll do this, things like that. A book that I really enjoy reading is Rich Dad Poor Dad. A lot of good takeaways when it
Mhm.
comes to financial management from that book. But a piece I love in it, he talks about instead of saying I can't afford this, replace that with how can I afford this.
I love
That's
that.
just one example, but when you say I can't afford this, you turn your mind off to the idea or possibility that you can even do it. When you
Mhm.
ask yourself, how can I afford this? You activate your brain. And now your brain is trying to find ways to make it happen, to be creative. And using the money piece is just one example, but that applies to anything. You have to really analyze the vocabulary you're using and see if it's suiting and it's tying into that positive mindset and the mindset shift that you want to make to get where you're trying to go.
Yep. I love how you shared that piece of, if you say I can't, then you're right, you can't. But if you say I want to and I can find a way, or how can I, then again, you're right, your world does open. Again, going through the options of how can
Mhm.
I do this? What is my path there? Good. I love that.
And another piece of mindset is when we first start towards something, it's exciting. We're motivated, like we're pumped up. We're thinking about, what it's going to be like when we get there. We've got, all of this motivation, and that helps us get started. But then over time, we lose that initial feeling. So, how can people get in control of their thoughts to maintain longer periods of that motivation and that productivity?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's something that everybody struggles with. And it is difficult because, one of my posts put out there that, the rewards of when you get to where you want to go are very exciting, but the work, it's not always fun. It's not always motivating. It's not something that you want to do. It could take, a little bit to do that. It's not always easy. It's usually never easy, right?
Mhm.
But it's worth it when you get there. So, what do you do when you're in the hard parts, when you're in the uncomfortable area? Sometimes I share with people that it can be as easy as, not as easy, but sometimes you have to embrace the suck. Okay. It's going to suck. And you understand that right now in this moment, it's hard, right? I'm on the treadmill and I'm doing it all out and I feel like I'm going to die, right? The oxygen mask is not dropping when I'm on the treadmill and I can't breathe. But I know that when I complete this class or when I'm done with the treadmill, I'm going to feel like $1,000,000, right? So it's
Mhm.
having those conversations, it's coaching yourself of remembering why I'm here, remembering how I felt yesterday when I was on the treadmill. I didn't die, right? Thank goodness. I felt amazing when I got done. When I finished the whole class, I felt great. So all of that self coaching, I tell everybody, if you're not talking to yourself, you're really missing out. Self talk is so fantastic. I mean, you should be talking to yourself every day, because self talk is great. Self coaching is great. You can learn techniques for better self coaching, but just talking to yourself. And your biggest thing is, as you said at the top of the hour, the why. Why am I doing this? Right? Whether you go to the gym, for example, because a lot of people talk about, I don't want to go to the gym. It's going to be uncomfortable. I don't want to go to the gym. It's early in the morning. I blah, blah, blah. You could, I don't want to all day long. Or you can say, it's going to suck, but I'm going to go because I know that I go, I'm going to feel amazing when I do. So this temporary moment, that's painful. That is so not
Mhm.
fun. I'd rather be sitting on the couch. I'd rather be doing laundry. Heck, I'd rather be doing anything else, right? It's not fun, but that temporary moment is not going to last as long as how you feel once you've done it. So a lot of that self-talk. Now, when I had the sales team, one of the exercises I did on an individual level is I sat and asked each of them, "Why are you here?" I need to make money, Amy. I got that. We all, that's, I'm not pro bono. And if you are pro bono, that is fantastic. And can I have 10 more of you, right? But if you're not, why are you here? And I didn't want to hear about money. I wanted to hear why they're here. So with each of those salespeople, I could tell you why they were there. And I have, one in particular I'll share that, because I have 2 kids that I need to support, because I want a house, because I want a pool. And then I think the kids drew the pictures, but she had pictures on her wall that were drawn of things that she wanted. That's why she was here. That is her why. She wants to support her family. She wants to do things that right now I'm thinking of, but then I want to do. So this is part of my planning, is I'm coming to work, I'm showing up, I'm doing the things. So really focusing in on that why is very helpful as well. So sometimes, embracing the suck, focusing on the why, and then remembering again that all of this is temporary. All of this is temporary. You have control. And I had one in particular who, on each of the coaching sessions, would talk about a couple things we were working on. It was business, but I swear, almost every business client I have, there's some type of health or fitness thing that we just kind of conveniently add in. But this person had a health thing that they were working on, but 2 to 3 weeks in a row, they had not done any activity toward that. So it was a question of, where is your sense of urgency on this? Well, I really want to do it. I'm like, okay, I'm here. And how bad do you want to do it on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 is, I really don't care. 10, I really want to do it. She was, I'm a 9. I really want to do it. I said, okay, great. I understand. And I hear that you really want to do it. But right in this moment, where's your sense of urgency? 1 being, not really. 10 being, I've got to do it now. Well, right now it's a 4 because of these other reasons. Okay, great. So we figured out that right now we need to drop that piece off the list. We're going to focus on these other things. Then later on, we'll add the health back on. So again, it's really getting into that self-talk of, why am I not wanting to be, again, going back to motivation, why am I not motivated? Is it because it's painful and I just don't want to do it? Okay, great. Embrace the suck and move on, right? Great. Again, focusing in on why I'm here. Great. And then is it important for me right now? Yeah. Again, going back to that why, why am I here? Why am I doing that? But the other thing is thinking back to a time of when have I been motivated? When I said that I'm going to do this and I'm really excited and I'm pumped and I'm getting going, what were you thinking?
Mm-hmm.
What were you thinking that got you excited, that got you started, that got you motivated, that got you to either write it down, that got your fire going, that got you to pick up the phone and go, oh my gosh, you'll never guess what I'm going to do. Just wait. Go back to those feelings. What were you thinking then? How do you tap back into that? Whether, and I don't know about everybody else, but sometimes I get fired up listening to a podcast. And often I will hit pause on the podcast and I will record some notes and then I'll get back on the podcast. I'm like, ooh, because as I'm listening, I get, motivated, I get passionate, and it gets the wheels turning. Or I could be doing laundry and something, just because, laundry, you don't have to think about it, you're just doing it. And that's when my mind just free flows. So how do you get back into that mode? When are you on? When are you motivated? And then using those things, going back to that to tap back in to say, I need to do this again. I need to think these things to get back into motivation mode, to get excited again, to remind myself. And it could be like maybe I need to add an accountability partner to help cheerlead me on, right? Because that's what coaches do. But also, you might have a buddy that's wanting to do the same thing or something similar, or it could be something different. And maybe you all just keep each other in check.
Yes. And when it comes to embracing the suck, Mondays are something that people definitely
Yes.
struggle with. And a lot of people just approach Monday with a, I don't want to be here, or a negative mentality when they come in. And I've seen you talk about this. So would you elaborate on and offer some tips on how people can shift their mindset to start the week off on the right foot, to approach Monday the right way?
Sure, absolutely. And I think that is definitely a difficult one, because I hear that, and it's funny that you're asking me that tonight, because somebody posted today, and I don't know if they'll listen to this podcast or not, but somebody posted a picture, like a meme of like an animal with a frowny face looking down, and it said something to the effect of like, "This is my Monday," and I was like, "Ooh." And I was going to respond to that, but I was like, no, I'll get her in person next time.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, there's no magic bullet here. It all comes down to a choice, right? And it all comes down to thought work. So what I mean by that is I could wake up today and I could say, oh my gosh, I've got to go to work and I've got to look at these things and I've got to call this person back. And oh my gosh, it's a Monday. What I trained myself to do, and this is partly coming from my father, I was brought up on his phrase of make it a good day. I love to hear people say, oh, have a great day. I'm like, I'm going to choose to. I'm going to choose to make it a great day. That's when I'm going to have a good day. So I think going back to the language in your thoughts, again, your thoughts control how you feel. I mean, it's really that basic and that simple, at least for me now, but I've done a lot of thought work, right? So
Yes.
I choose to say it's going to be a great day. It's going to be an amazing day because I'm going to choose to make it a great day. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be amazing, because I was on the treadmill today, man, but I didn't die. right? I felt great afterward. There was a lot of self-talk, but it was hard. So that part of my Monday was very hard to do. Had a lot of running around to do. But what I tell myself is I got to do a lot of running around today. I got to interact with a lot of people today. I got to go work out today. A lot of people can't work out, but I got to work out today.
Yes.
So again, it comes down to the wording. And when people say, oh, that sounds too easy, I'm like, you're right, it is. But why can't so many people do it? Because again, it comes down to a choice. You can either choose to say, yeah, I know, Amy, but it's a Monday. Everything goes haywire and it's crazy on a Monday. And okay, great. It's all about your mindset. It's all about shifting those thoughts. Again, there is no magic bullet. A lot of people say, well, here, on Sunday nights, I prep and I do. And, you've got to figure out what works for you. You need to figure out what works for you. But I tell you, it all comes down to your thoughts. Doing thought work it will just change your results on everything if you put the time on your thought work.
You've said it multiple times it doesn't happen overnight. It requires
Mm-hmm.
consistent practice, and still you're never going to be perfect. But if you're consistent
Mm-hmm.
and you continue to practice and continue to grow, you get better over time. You'll continue to grow, you'll continue to get better over time. We've talked a lot through mindset within ourselves. I want to dive into external influences
Mm-hmm.
and how they can really be detrimental to how we allow them to impact us and the path that we take, the decisions that we make. Can you tell us about some of the common external influences that people need to be aware of that can have a negative influence or impact on their decisions?
Sure. That's, again, a great question. I appreciate you asking. The first thing that came to mind when you said external, it went right back to thoughts, because external doesn't control me. I control myself. I control my brain. I control my thoughts. So I will put out there, first of all, is you need to work on your filter of what
Mhm.
you allow to come in from the external world, right?
Well,
So
yeah.
doing that work is going to help with the next couple of things that I'll share with you. But understandably, I think what continues to be one of the hot topics, if we are addressing external, is social media. Social
Yes.
media can be so detrimental to people that cannot do thought work, that have not done thought work, that allow, which sometimes we all do. I mean, we all do, right? But how long we stay in that pity party for ourselves, or however it makes us feel, however long we stay in those feelings, again, is our choice. But understandably, social media is manipulative.
Mhm.
The stuff that comes out can be very manipulative, and how we let it make us feel. Again, how we allow it to make us feel can be harmful to us, can be harmful to our business, very harmful to our confidence. So again, social media, I think, is one of the biggest external factors that can be harmful. I really can't think of another one that's as bad as social media, externally speaking.
Mhm.
And then from social media comes I was trying to think of the phrase, what do they call it? The thief of comparison. But comparing yourself to everybody else, who are at different levels, have different circumstances, have different everything, right? It could be your same exact business, something that looks just like you, and you're like, well, oh my gosh, she has a website up, she's got business cards. She already has a podcast. Do I need to do a podcast? Let me go
Mhm.
research 100 podcasts. Oh my gosh, why don't I have a podcast? I've had my business open for 2 years and I don't have a podcast, and all these other coaches have a podcast. Comparing ourselves to others is so harmful. It's so painful. Um, Again, we've all been there. I mean, I can't say that I haven't looked at other stuff in the past. I mean, being in the AV business, for years, and having other smaller owned companies with different salespeople, of course, I was like, what is that salesperson selling, right? How much did they sell this month? What did they sell? But what I found was the time that I spent and the energy that I spent worrying about what they were doing and how they did it, and they were sharing, giving all the details. I lost the wind on my team. I
Mm-hmm.
lost the control and the feelings on my team because I worried about that. Same in my business now, same in other businesses. When you worry about what everybody else is doing, now, understandably, sometimes, in some businesses, you want to know, you want to be kind of equal or level to the competition, especially if talk about gas prices, right? I mean, I used to work at a convenience store, and I used to have to do drive-bys to other convenience stores to see what they were pricing and then report that in because obviously that's, gassing is competitive and they want to kind of be equal unless you're like a Shell or BP or things like that.
Right.
um, but again, speaking in generalities, comparison can absolutely destroy somebody's confidence. And it really keeps them from moving forward on making decisions
Mm-hmm.
because they fear that it's not going to be as good as, it's not going to be perfect. I'm going to fail. I mean, even if they don't look at comparison or other people, they still have those thoughts. But social media and then comparing are absolutely destroying people. Whether it's kids, it's adults. Because some people are like, "Oh, it's hurting the kids." It's hurting adults also because
Yeah.
adults are doing the same thing. They are comparing. Whether they have this and I don't. They're doing this and I'm not. They're already at this level and I'm not. They're making this much and I'm not, rather than staying in your own lane and my phrase of focusing on what you can control.
Mm-hmm.
Taking those blinders and kind of reeling them in and focusing, moving forward on your business, listening to your gut and moving forward for you and not for anybody else.
Yes, you have to remember that it's your journey, not anybody else's. You can't compare your journey to somebody else's. So
Yeah.
that's perfect. Just remember that it's your journey, not
Yeah.
anybody else's. Don't get caught up in that.
Yeah, and I will, if you don't mind, a lot of times what I would, when I again had the sales team, what I would ask them, especially if they had kids or if they didn't, if they had nephews or something, I would always ask them when they would come to me and say, "Well, I really feel bad because so and so's doing this and I'm doing this," or any questions that where they would be really have harmful self talk. I would always ask them, "How would you advise your child?"
Mm,
If your child came to you and they were beating themselves up because they got, this grade and this child got this grade, and they were looking at all the other grades or they were looking at athletics or they didn't get chosen for the basketball team, how would you talk to your child? And then I would, after that, tell them, talk to yourself like you're talking to your child. Would you talk that mean to your child?
mm-hmm.
Talk to yourself the way that you would treat your children. Because
That's
we
great
can
advice.
be the worst people to ourselves and the meanest people to ourselves and beat ourselves up. And it does us absolutely no good.
We can. We're our own worst critics
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. So segueing into, on top of operating your business as a coach, you're also a military spouse, a mother, a lot of hats that you wear. And so, one of the things that I struggled with at points in my life, and seen a lot of other people struggle with, is balance between everything, between work and aspirations and relationships and family. Can you share any wisdom or advice on the right way to approach balance in your life?
Sure, and that's a great point as well. And I will tell you, there is no right way for everybody. You've got to figure out what works for you and what balance looks like to you. And I think it's really not about balance because balance assumes that there's something, in the middle and that it's kind of, oh, it's balanced. Now it's going to stay that way, right? Like I've balanced the picture out after it's hung. It's not crooked. It's not tilting one way or the other. I think rather than balance, it's figuring out your flow, right?
Mm,
Because a flow can be constantly changing. Whether you're thinking of the flow of the river, like sometimes parts of it are fast, sometimes parts of it slow down a little bit. It ebbs
mhm.
and flows, right? I think it's a river, creek, or whatever it is, but it's water. So figuring out what flow works for you and the people around you, who you care if it works for, right? But you've got to figure out, and I always tell you, figure out what works for you first, and then figure out for what works for the people around you. But coming from the business perspective, again, humanizing the business, going back to how I used to operate, I'd have to remind people that how you are, if you're in leadership or you're in management, how you are running things, running your business, how you are interacting, people will look at you for the lead. And an example I will give you is if you go home at night after work and you're replying to emails, if you are asking for information and the emails are going out, you are telling people two things. One is that whether you say it or not, gee, I'm looking for an answer right now. You should respond. And two is, I expect you to be sending emails at all hours. And my thing in the past was, well, I didn't tell them they needed to respond. I was just going to get it before I forgot the next day. Yeah, Amy, but that's letting them know that they assume that you're expecting an answer. Even if you tell them that you don't need to answer this, they're reading it, they're expecting it, and you're training them that it's okay to email at night and then it's expected. So my whole retraining of my brain and coaching myself was, okay, you know what? When I come home, I don't always email at night, but if I travel, I'm working at the hotel. I don't watch TV in the hotel. I'll go work out, but then I'm working at night because I'm taking advantage of, not being at home and being in a hotel. So if I craft emails, unless I forget, I'm scheduling them to email out the next morning at 8 a.m. every single time. Like sometimes people could look at my email and like 10 emails are going out at one time. So we need to be cautious of how we're interacting and the message that we're sending
Mhm.
on what our expectations are, maybe indirectly sending. But yeah, you've got to figure out what works for you, what balance looks like for you, because it is so different for everybody. I know some people that say, I love to work, 12 hours a day. That's what gets them pumped up. Maybe they don't have a family, but that's what works for them. I think again, you've got to figure out what makes sense for you, what that looks like, and figure out what your flow is. It took me a while because on vacations, I'll admit it. Again, back to the robot, as one boss told me, robotic Amy. Operating like a robot, like constantly going. Before I humanized the business, I mean, I was answering emails in the bathroom on vacation. Don't
Mhm.
do that. Just don't do it. Because if your business cannot wait for something or cannot survive without you, you're running your business incorrectly. There are ways to change that. Again, if you need help with that, holler at me. But there are ways that you can work around that.
Absolutely. And that'll lead us right into there's a lot of people out there looking for coaching or have thought about coaching. And what is the right time for someone to consider looking for a personal or a business coach? And what are the important things for them to know when it comes to choosing the right coach for them?
Sure. Good questions. I think it's any time that you're looking to do something, change something, get to something, accomplish something, anytime that you're struggling with anything is a great time to reach out to a coach. Some people constantly have a coach, whether it's a life coach, a business coach. I mean, there are ADHD coaches. I mean, there are very specific niches. So a lot of people just constantly have a coach because a coach serves as an accountability partner. It
Mhm.
serves to be someone who, forgive this, but like a verbal vomit, if you will. A lot of times coaches will, listen and take things in. And a phrase that was shared with me is, I just feel better after we talk. So they don't take that home with them, right?
Mhm.
It's all released, it's all shared. So you need to figure out what's, either what works for you, what's not working for you. And you've got to be in the right mindset to want to make a change. Because again, coaches should not be dictating what you do. Again, I'm an unbiased partner. My only goal is to get you to where you want to go or who you want to be, right? And help build that path for you. But you've got to be in the right mindset to want to do what you set out to do or want to make a change and to do the work. And as
Absolutely.
far as I think you said on choosing someone,
Mhm.
a certified life coach should be able to coach on anything. Whether it's finances, whether it's communication, whether it's relationships, work, kids, health and fitness. Certified coaches can work on anything. If you have something specific, there's likely a specific coach for that as well. I think what it comes down to is, do you have a rapport with that person? Are you going to be comfortable opening up and sharing everything? And on the flip side, are you going to be comfortable when that person challenges you or asks you, how do you feel about being challenged? Because part of what we do, part of the work we do together is when you say, I don't know, I don't know. Okay, well, if you did know, what would the answer be then? So I'm going to give you some time to think about that, because let's stay right here until you do come up with some ways, or you do come up with some ideas, because I know that you have some deep down. Let's keep digging, let's keep and challenging. Or if you say, I don't have the money, okay, but you don't have the money, but how could you get the money? How could you have the money? Right? So part of the job as a coach is to challenge people. But if you're not comfortable with that person, you're going to have a hard time opening up, sharing information, being challenged, asking questions. And it's really going to make a difficult process to be able to do the work. Not that you couldn't do it, but it's probably going to take a little bit longer because you're going to be slower to open up and have a conversation.
Yes, I love that. Great takeaways. So many through the whole conversation, incredible takeaways, learning points, things that people can really take away to start practicing on improving their mindsets and their approach. Is there anything I didn't ask today that you think might be helpful to share, whether it be personal or toward business, or anything that I might have not asked?
No, just the thing that comes to mind is, just focusing in on what the freedom of choice allows you to do. Because some people, I don't know of a better phrase, but let the world happen to them. But once people figure out that they can actually control what happens to them and control how they move forward, what they move forward to, their world opens up. It's absolutely amazing that you have the ability to choose. And once you control your thoughts, you're going to be able to control your results on anything that you want to do. It's amazing. It takes work, but it's amazing.
Absolutely. Last thing, how can people find you? How do they connect with you? How do they find you for coaching or questions?
Sure, thank you. And trust me, my details are out there. I am on Instagram at the Amy Blackburn. Blackburn Boutique Coaching.com is my website. I'm on LinkedIn, Amy Gabhart Blackburn. I'm on Facebook. And I'm trying to think of my email is amy at blackburnboutiquecoaching.com.
Perfect. I'll make sure that I drop those in the notes so that
Thank
people
you.
can find you easily. Thank you so much for taking the time today, for sharing your stories, your information, and knowledge. The generosity means a lot to me, and hopefully to everybody listening, because it's really all about just helping people to reach their goals, to be fulfilled. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, subscribe, give it a 5-star review, share it with other people. If you found something useful, then somebody else can too. Let's impact as many people as possible. Join the conversation by commenting with your thoughts and questions, and let's grow together.